Excuse me. I was hoping you would be able to answer a few of my questions, though.
You want me to answer your questions?
Well, I was hoping
What
so.
are your questions?
Down with Trump. Why are you protesting today?
So Donald Trump, as you know, is won an award to rebuild this particular federal property. And when he announced his candidacy for the Republican nomination, he denounced immigrants and specifically focused on immigrants from Mexico, you know, folk who are here in the country illegally, and he called them rapists and murderers and criminals. And so people were just outraged by his statements and want to make sure that people who do business with him understand that that kind of language is not tolerable, and it's intolerable, it's xenophobic, and it just doesn't aid in terms of a good discussion about immigration in America.
Definitely. I think we need to have that discussion in America, and I think there's a broken immigration system.
Absolutely.
And is he running for president?
So Donald Trump is running on the Republican ticket for president. So you know there are like 17 or 18 folk who've announced their candidacy for the Republican nomination, and he's one of them.
I know.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that damage his chances of winning the Republican nomination, though? There's no way anyone can really consider him seriously, though.
Well, I don't know that it does. What his comments have done, I believe, is elevate the conversation. It spotlights the conversation about not only about anti-immigration, but also about racism in America. And so one would think that people wouldn't rally behind him, but he actually is polling highest alongside with Jeb Bush in terms of the Republicans. He's polling highest now.
That's very interesting, isn't it? We're not moving towards a more progressive society, but more towards we're regressing as a society almost.
I think that's correct. I think that's correct. I mean, people, the worst, you know, in their worst sort of permutations are coming out, and they're anti-immigrant, they're anti-race, it's all sorts, you know, anti-homosexuality, it's all of the stuff that they hate, and they're now being more vocal about it, and they figure through Donald Trump that they have a voice, they have a national voice to talk about what their concerns are. Similarly, what's happening in South Carolina when they just had the vote last night on the House side to remove the Confederate flag from the grounds of the State House in South Carolina. They went down to the wire last night about 1:30 in the morning. The representative side of the House voted overwhelmingly to remove the flag from the Capitol grounds. But it took them all day to do that. The Senate, the South Carolina Senate, did it earlier this week, and so hopefully by tomorrow the flag will be removed. And so again, it's just people who have, you know, racist and xenophobic beliefs. They're coming out and they're being more vocal about it. Is what's going on.
So what's your take on the Confederate flag exactly?
So I'm African American. My ancestors were slaves in America. You know, my family grew up in South Carolina, right? Actually, because South Carolina was one of the ports where, you know, slaves entered, and so the Confederate flag, the Confederacy lost the Civil War. And so if that's the case, then why are we glorifying that flag? Because the flag says to us is that there still is an element in this country that thinks that we should not have abolished slavery, that there still should be slavery, and that black folk who were brought here, enslaved Africans, that we're still inferior and that we're inhumane, and so that's a problem for me.
I think you had a point there. It's not really about heritage; it's about really hate.
Oh, absolutely. And so they've spun the conversation differently, is what they've done, because they actually hoisted the flag, or started using the flag more during the Civil Rights era back in the 60s, when black folk were fighting for the right to vote and for fair housing and for decent accommodations and for the ability to just be left alone and not be lynched because, you know, we walk down the street. And so when there was a move to alter the civil rights in America, then, you know, it's part of the Southern strategy that they decided, well, we're gonna, you know, this is a flag that, you know, that will always instill in us what our beliefs are, and our beliefs are that, you know, we don't think that black folks should be equal, they should be entitled to equal accommodation or to anything that, you know, any kind of economic gain or educational gain in this country, and so that's a concern, and that's what that flag represents to me as an African American, and so the white folk would say, well, it's our heritage, but remember, the South lost. The South lost the Civil War.
And I think you have a point there. Would you say that it's almost treacherous to be wearing it.
Oh, I think so. I think so. But nobody's talking about that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's having that conversation.
I don't
But
think
yeah,
so.
yeah. So hopefully I've answered some questions. I got to run down because we're still setting up. Michael,
Yes.
Theodora Brown. Thank you.
I would hope that I would get an interview with the representative
so
as
just
well.
make sure you tag me, okay? Tag me, and I'll
What's supposed to happen?
So there's